Ben Sulayem has been facing a series of recent criticisms from Lewis Hamilton and George Russell regarding the changes to Appendix B that were mentioned by the president of the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile. It seems that the drivers have little to no confidence that such alterations will actually be implemented, believing that it's all talk without action, which further increases the pressure on Ben Sulayem to maintain his position at the helm. But are Russell and Hamilton's statements enough to strengthen the drivers' opposition to the president? And, more importantly, what is the impact of this within the broader structure of the entity that governs Formula One? There is no doubt that the drivers are completely dissatisfied with Ben Sulayem, and made this clear at the most recent press conference when addressing the possible changes to Appendix B. The president has been criticized for interfering in rules related to the use of swear words, something that the drivers consider completely unacceptable coming from someone in his position. Ben Sulayem acknowledged the pressure precisely at a delicate moment, as he needs to defend his permanence in the presidency at the end of the year before the council. When commenting on the changes to Appendix B, Ben Sulayem stated, "After receiving constructive feedback from the drivers who participate in our 7 World Championships of the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile, I am considering making improvements to Appendix B. As a former rally driver, I understand the demands they face better than many. Appendix B is an essential part of the International Sporting Code and is fundamental to keeping the sport accessible for our entire sporting community. Human beings create the rules, and human beings can improve them. This principle of continuous improvement has always been something I believed in, and is at the heart of everything we do at the Fédération Internationale de l'Automobile." Unfortunately, we disagree with Ben Sulayem on this point. Former members of the entity have openly stated that they do not support the president, this being the main reason why they decided to leave the organization. 2 of these names are Robert Reed and David Richards. The former was vice president of the federation, while the latter held the position of chairman of Motorsport UK. Both left after being prevented from attending a meeting in which they refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement. This was precisely the meeting that approved the mandatory 2-stop rule in the pits for the Monaco Grand Prix, which raises serious doubts about the transparency of the institution. Recently, both Hamilton and Russell questioned the integrity of the federation in implementing these changes. Hamilton, a known opponent of Ben Sulayem, stated, "At the end of the day, we don't have a seat of power at the decision-making table. And in my opinion, that needs to change. People are making decisions for others without ever having been in the same position. It's important to consider the driver's point of view, and that's what we try to offer." This statement comes after the disagreement between Hamilton and Ben Sulayem regarding the jewelry ban. When this rule was proposed, the 7-time champion appeared at the 2022 Miami Grand Prix wearing all possible jewelry, in a gesture of provocation towards the federation's policies. Furthermore, Hamilton was seen ignoring Ben Sulayem at the Jeddah circuit, while the president was trying to start a conversation with him, which proves that his stance towards the leader remains unchanged. Hamilton continues to show total disrespect for the president of the entity, and it doesn't seem like this will change anytime soon. This is a strong statement from Hamilton. We are witnessing an extremely complicated period in which drivers do not have the right to express themselves in the sport they participate in. Yes, they have their own association, the GPDA, which was led by former driver Alex Wurz, and is currently led by George Russell. However, when it comes to important decisions made by the highest authority in the sport, they can only suggest changes publicly. This is precisely Russell's constant complaint, as he has argued that the GPDA should have more influence in the federation's voting processes. Regarding the change in Appendix B, the Mercedes driver is quite skeptical, as he has heard about this possibility for a long time, but has not seen any alteration actually applied in practice. Russell stated, "We want to see these measures put into action, instead of hearing that they are being considered. We all consider many things, but we have made it clear that we want changes. In other words, words mean nothing until concrete actions are taken. And this is the big problem between the drivers and the federation. They have no harmony whatsoever. These athletes know better than anyone how difficult it is to follow the current rule. They cannot swear. They cannot criticize decisions of the stewards or hurt their feelings, as this could result in penalties. Comparing with other sports such as soccer or basketball, the highest entities do not seem as concerned with the opinion of the athletes as they conduct their political processes while allowing players to have freedom of opinion based on constructive dialogue. As mentioned earlier, we have an evident problem. The drivers do not have a seat at the federation's table, something that Russell has highlighted several times. He emphasized this need by saying, "Unfortunately, whenever we hear news coming from that side of the sport, it's not exactly a surprise. It is truly regrettable to see someone so respected in the category express such frustration, and we continue to wonder what comes next. It is indeed a shame, and we hope that more stability will emerge as soon as possible." All the drivers fully trust Stefano Domenicali and Formula One. They know that there is a joint effort between the category and the teams. Everyone wants something positive to emerge from this moment, with more stability and collaboration. What the drivers want is collaboration. It makes no sense to continue fighting over these issues. Criticism also came from Tim Mayer, former race director. Mayer left his position because he had a similar opinion to Reed and Richards. He believed that the federation was heading in the wrong direction and did not hesitate to point the finger at Ben Sulayem. There is a general perception that the former driver from the United Arab Emirates runs the entity as if it were his own political party, in an authoritarian manner, and those who disagree with his conduct suffer, directly or indirectly, some kind of pressure. Mayer stated that Ben Sulayem advocated for the punishment of drivers for using swear words. This was his opinion, and the consequences show exactly that. There were moments when the president got directly involved to make his view heard, not by the stewards themselves, but through his staff. Part of the steward's job is to apply the federation's policies based on the rules. Technically, the use of improper language is prohibited, so the punishment is not unfair. However, discussing whether it is wise to punish drivers for mild swearing is another matter. This reveals another important message. Not everyone in the entity supported the penalties related to the use of swear words imposed by Ben Sulayem in Appendix B. In trying to protect the stewards and the Federation staff, he ended up making them excessively vulnerable and unsympathetic to the drivers, without any real reason or direct influence on their part. That is why changes are more than necessary, and you can be sure that they are on their way. Susie Wolff has been pointed out as one of the most qualified figures to replace Ben Sulayem due to her experience and performance in the sport, but mainly because of her mission to support women and minorities in a male-dominated environment. She would have sufficient reasons to take on the role, especially after the Federation, led by Ben Sulayem, opened an investigation against her and Toto Wolff without any evidence, only to quickly drop everything, revealing the incompetence of certain figures in the organization. However, Susie has denied having any interest in running for president when the position becomes available. It remains to be seen what will happen to the Federation if they decide to follow a new path and leave behind Ben Sulayem's controversial management. With all this in mind, what do you think of Russell and Hamilton's bombshell statements about the president of the entity? And more importantly, do you believe he will be replaced after this pressure coming from such important names in Formula One? Leave your opinion in the comments, and after that, click on the video that is now appearing on your screen.